The Path to Emotional Freedom, a Stoic Guide. Doesn't it feel like our world is a relentless storm of noise, a constant barrage of notifications, deadlines, opinions, and expressions? For a long time, I felt like I was drowning in it all. My emotional state was hijacked by every breaking news alert, every passive-aggressive email, every thoughtless comment on social media. I was living in a state of constant reaction, like a puppet pulled by strings I couldn't even see. My peace of mind was so fragile, easily shattered by things that, in the grand scheme of things, really shouldn't have mattered. Have you ever felt that way? Trapped not by actual walls or chains, but by your own emotional responses. I knew something had to change. I was tired of being a slave to my feelings, of letting everything outside of me dictate my internal world. To find a way out, I didn't turn to the latest self-help trend, but to the ancient past, to the timeless wisdom of the Stoics. These were philosophers like Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, who lived in their own chaotic times, but figured out how to build an unshakable inner fortress. So, for 1 week, I committed to living by their principles. I disconnected from the noise and plugged into this ancient operating system for the human mind. This is the story of that journey, and the 6 lessons that led me from emotional chaos to a genuine, lasting sense of freedom. The first lesson: uncontrollable. My experiment began on a Monday, and it didn't take long for the first test to show up. It came in the form of an email from a client. It was demanding, critical, and frankly, a little unfair. My immediate gut reaction was that familiar surge of heat, a mix of anger, anxiety, and indignation. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, ready to fire back a defensive reply. But then, I remembered the first and most fundamental rule of Stoicism: understanding what you can and can't control. The philosopher Epictetus laid it out with incredible clarity. He said, some things are up to us, and some things are not. What's up to us are our own opinions, motivations, and desires, basically, our own actions. What's not up to us is our body, property, reputation, and everything that we don't create ourselves. As I stared at that email, I asked myself the question the Stoics would ask. What here is actually in my control? The client's opinion? Not in my control. Their tone? Not in my control. Their deadline? Not in my control. But my response? My judgment about their words? My decision to let it ruin my morning? That was entirely in my power. As the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." This isn't about suppressing your feelings or pretending the frustration isn't there. It's about creating a little bit of space between the trigger and your response. And in that space, I chose not to let my mind add fuel to the fire. Instead of reacting with anger, I just took a breath. I focused only on what I could do: write a calm, professional, and constructive reply. I controlled my actions, my choices, and with that simple shift, the anger and anxiety lost their power. They didn't vanish, but they no longer owned me. For the rest of the day, I felt a quiet strength. The email storm had passed, but my inner fortress remained untouched. This is the foundation of emotional freedom, knowing the difference between what we must accept and what we can influence, and pouring all our energy into what we can influence. The second lesson: rehearsing for misfortune. By Wednesday, I was feeling that low-grade hum of anxiety. I had a major presentation scheduled for Friday. It was a high-stakes meeting, and my mind was a playground for what-if scenarios. What if the tech fails? What if I trip over my words? What if they hate my proposal? My imagination, which should have been a tool for creativity, had turned into a fear factory. This is where I tried one of the most counterintuitive yet powerful Stoic exercises, premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of bad things. Now, this isn't about being a pessimist, it's a practical rehearsal for adversity. The philosopher Seneca, who faced his own share of turmoil, argued that we suffer more often in imagination than in reality. So much of our anxiety is just us worrying about things that never actually happen. The Stoic solution is to meet these imagined fears head-on. So, on Wednesday night, instead of distracting myself, I sat down and did the exercise. I took out my journal and vividly pictured the worst-case scenarios. I imagined the projector dying. I pictured the key clients looking bored, checking their phones. I imagined being asked a question I couldn't answer, with that awkward silence just hanging in the air. I let myself feel the flush of embarrassment, the sting of potential failure. Then, I did the second part of the practice. I planned my response for each one. If the tech failed, I had printed copies ready as a backup. If I stumbled over my words, I'd pause, take a sip of water, and calmly restart my sentence. If they looked bored, I'd remind myself that their reaction is not in my control. My job is simply to give the best presentation I can. I told myself that even if the whole thing was a complete disaster, life would go on. I would learn from it, and I would be okay. As Seneca put it, a gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials. By facing the friction in my mind, I was polishing my own resilience. By the time I went to bed, the anxiety had faded dramatically, replaced by a sense of preparedness. When Friday came, I walked into that meeting not with the nervous energy of someone hoping for the best, but with the calm confidence of someone prepared for anything. That's the Stoic secret. By mentally rehearsing for difficulty, you strip it of its power to shock you. The third lesson, taking the view from above. The middle of the week also brought a wave of personal stress. A disagreement with a family member had been weighing on me, replaying over and over in my mind. Each imagined argument left me more agitated. The problem felt huge, all-consuming, as if it were the absolute center of the universe. My thoughts were stuck in a tight, suffocating loop. This is when I tried another of Marcus Aurelius's signature practices, the view from above. He would often tell himself to zoom out, to see his own life and its problems from a cosmic perspective. He wrote, "Dwell on the beauty of life, watch the stars, and see yourself running with them." So I tried it. I closed my eyes and imagined myself floating up out of my chair, looking down at my room, then higher, seeing my building, my neighborhood, and my city as a tiny grid of lights. Higher still, until my entire country was just a shape on the globe. I kept going, past the moon, past the planets, until the Earth itself was just a pale blue dot, a tiny, fragile sphere hanging in the vast, silent darkness of space. From that vantage point, I tried to find my problem. I tried to locate that one, single, heated disagreement. From that cosmic distance, it was impossible. It was less than a grain of sand on an infinite beach. All the heat, all the urgency, all the self-important drama just evaporated. The exercise didn't make the disagreement disappear, but it shattered the distorted perspective that was making it so painful. It put my troubles back into their true, manageable size. This practice is the perfect antidote to the ego. Our minds naturally make our own struggles seem catastrophic. The view from above gently reminds us that we're all interconnected and that we're all pretty small, which, far from being depressing, is actually liberating. It helps you look at your life with a sense of perspective, even humor. It helps you see things for what they are. You realize that most of the things that cause you emotional turmoil are, from a high enough perspective, insignificant. This doesn't make you care less. It helps you care more wisely. The fourth lesson: learning to love what is. The week wouldn't have been a real test without something genuinely going wrong. It happened on Friday afternoon. A project I had poured weeks of effort into was abruptly put on hold. There was no one to blame. It was just a shift in company priorities. My immediate feeling was a deep, sinking frustration. All that work just wasted. My plans derailed. It felt like a punch to the gut. In that moment of disappointment, I was tempted to complain, to resist, to fume about how unfair it all was. But then I remembered a Stoic concept that might be the most difficult of them all: amor fati, or a love of your fate. It's the idea of not just accepting what happens, but embracing it, welcoming it. Marcus Aurelius said to welcome with affection what is sent by fate. The Stoics believed that events themselves aren't good or bad, they're neutral. It's our judgment about them that makes them seem good or bad. They saw the universe as a rational, ordered place. So, whatever happens is a part of that rational order. To fight against it is to fight against nature itself, a battle you will always lose. Applying this was incredibly hard. How could I love that my project was cancelled? The key was to reframe it not as a setback, but as an opportunity. This unexpected event had just freed up my time. So, what could I do with this new space? I could focus on another project that had been on the back burner. I could learn a new skill. I could invest more time in building relationships with my team. The event itself didn't change, but by choosing to see it as a necessary, and maybe even beneficial, part of my path, my emotional response to it was transformed. The frustration gave way to a sense of calm, acceptance, and even curiosity. This is the heart of resilience. It isn't just about bouncing back from adversity. It's about using adversity to grow. Amor fati is the ultimate expression of emotional freedom, because if you can learn to love whatever life throws at you, then nothing has the power to break your peace. You become, in a way, unbeatable. The fifth lesson: the discipline of the journal. Throughout this entire week, one practice tied all the others together: keeping a philosophical journal. This isn't just a diary for recording what happened during your day. For the Stoics, especially Marcus Aurelius, it was a training ground for the mind. It was a space for self-examination, for challenging your own thoughts, and for preparing for the day ahead. Every morning, I wrote for about 15 minutes. I'd prepare myself for the day by thinking about the challenges I might face and reminding myself of what I could and couldn't control. I'd think about the people I was going to interact with and, like Marcus Aurelius, prepare to meet them with patience and understanding, even if they were difficult. I would ask myself, how can I practice virtue today? How can I respond with wisdom, courage, and self-control? 5. Then, every evening before bed, I'd write again. This was a time for reflection. Seneca recommended asking yourself a few questions. What weakness did I work on today? What good did I do? What could I have done better? This daily discipline of writing was transformative. It brought order to my chaotic thoughts and forced me to be honest with myself about my emotional reactions. It created a feedback loop for self-improvement. By writing down my anxious thoughts, I could see how irrational they often were. By analyzing how I reacted to things, I could spot my own unhelpful patterns and consciously work to change them. The journal became my private workshop for rebuilding my mindset, which is a core idea in modern cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT. a field that owes a huge debt to Stoic philosophy. The act of writing gets your thoughts out of your head, allowing you to examine them with some distance. You stop being your thoughts and become the observer of your thoughts. This simple habit, more than any other, cemented the lessons of the week. It was no longer just a one-week challenge. It was becoming a way of life, built one journal entry at a time. The final lesson, remembering the end. As my week-long challenge drew to a close, there was one final, sobering principle that put all the others into perspective. Memento mori. Remember, you must die. This might sound morbid, but for the Stoics, it was the ultimate tool for finding clarity. On the final day of my challenge, I kept this thought in my mind. When a minor annoyance popped up a long line at the coffee shop, a slow driver, I would ask myself, in the face of my own mortality, does this truly matter? The answer, every single time, was a clear and resounding no. Thinking about death doesn't make life depressing, it makes it precious. It's like a filter that separates what's trivial from what's essential. It forces you to ask the most important question: am I spending my limited time on this earth well? As Seneca wisely said, it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. We waste it on petty arguments, on pointless anxieties, on chasing things that don't truly bring us meaning. Memento mori is the cure. The knowledge that you could leave life at any moment should shape what you do, say, and think. It silences the fear of what other people think. It encourages you to act with courage, to love fully, to pursue what matters to you, and to let go of the rest. This final lesson was what tied everything together. It put all the other principles into focus. The dichotomy of control, rehearsing for misfortune, the view from above, loving your fate, and the journal, these aren't just life hacks. They are tools for living a good life, a life of meaning in the short time that we have. Conclusion 89. That week changed me. I didn't become a passionless robot, empty of emotion. It was the opposite. I feel things just as deeply as before, but I'm no longer a slave to them. I found that true emotional freedom isn't the absence of feeling. It's the space you create between a feeling and your reaction to it. It's the ability to stand in the fire of life's challenges and choose your response with wisdom and discipline. It's the inner peace that comes from focusing only on what you can control, accepting what you can't, and trying to live with purpose every single day. This path isn't always easy. It takes constant practice, but the reward is the greatest freedom of all, freedom from your own turmoil. It's the ability to build an inner citadel that no external event can ever break down. This was my journey, but now I want to hear about yours. Which of these Stoic lessons resonates with you the most? What is the biggest emotional challenge you face in the noise of modern life? Leave a comment below, and let's start a conversation. The Stoics believed in the power of community and sharing wisdom. And if you found this guide helpful and want to continue the journey of building a more resilient and peaceful mind, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications. We have a lot more ancient wisdom to explore together. Thanks for watching.